up guys? In this video I'm going to show you how you can install a handrail like this to any set of steps to make them a little bit safer. Let's get into it. Alright, so as you can see I've got the carpet installed and my next step is to get this handrail attached to the wall. Now you want to try to go off building code for your area as far as the height goes. I particularly want to make sure that my handrail is under this light switch here so I don't have to move this light switch. But anyway, so what I'm basically doing is figuring out the height that I want this to be, taking a ruler and measuring off the nose of my stair tread. And then I want to make sure that when I'm measuring off the nose portion of every tread, not another part of the step. And then I'm using that mark to sort of figure out the slope. And once I get my slope figured out, then it'll be time to figure out where my studs are so that I can attach my bracket pieces for the rail to sit on. So first up is just making some marks on the wall to figure out where this handrail is gonna sit on the wall. Now, I did a little research into the building code for my area, and the range for the height for this handrail needed to be between 32 and 38 inches from the treads. Now, like I said earlier, I was trying to make sure the handrail was underneath this light switch, so I went with the minimum height here for this installation. So I just measured up 32 inches from the nose of my stair tread and made a mark. That mark would tell me where the top of the handrail would sit. But I needed to know where exactly my brackets would need to be attached. So to figure that out, I measured the height of the handrail itself and added that measurement to the height of the mounting bracket. Then I took that number and subtracted it from my total height, and that would tell me where the bottom of my mounting bracket needed to sit on the wall. I just measured up that amount from the stair tread and made another mark. This mark would tell me where to place my bracket. Now that I had the first mounting bracket marked, I needed to head up to the top of the steps to figure out where I needed to mount the top bracket. To do this, I used those same measurements that I used down at the bottom, except here my top step didn't exactly align with the stud, so I had to find a tread that would allow me to mount my top bracket into a stud. Once I found one, then I measured and made a mark for where to install my bracket. Once I'd spent some time finding exactly where my studs were at the top of the bottom and marked everything out, then it was time to get my top and bottom brackets attached to the wall. To do this, I just lined my bracket up with those marks I made earlier and then drilled and attached the brackets into the studs with the provided screws. With those two brackets attached, it was time to figure out the slope of the railing. To do this, I had my dad help me by attaching a string to each of those two brackets. Now you could also use something like a chalk line here for marking it out. With the string line pulled tight, we were able to see the slope of the handrail. Then I went along that string line and found exactly where my studs were. Trying to keep them evenly spaced apart, I used a bracket to make a mark on the wall where the studs were along the string line, and then I drilled and attached them to the wall. With all of my brackets mounted, it was time to work on getting the handrail cut and installed. The handrail that we would be installing was a 12-foot oak handrail that we picked up from Lowe's. Now, I will admit that even 12 feet was not quite long enough for this particular staircase, but it was close enough that we went with it rather than buying two and joining them together. Now, typically you want the handrail to be longer than the staircase though, if you can. I knew that I wanted to cut this handrail at 45-degree angles on the ends so that I could return it to the wall. Now, if you've ever gotten anything caught on a railing that's not returned to the wall, well, then you know why I chose to do this. I think it looks better and it's a little bit safer, plus building code also recommends this distance to allow your hand to freely use the handrail without scraping against the wall. To cut this handrail, I measured 1.5 inches from my edge and made a mark. Now I'm going to make a 45-degree cut, making sure that my 1.5 inches is from my shortest point of the angle. This will help ensure that my distance is the same for each end. Once I had one side cut, I saved that piece because it's actually going to be attached to my opposite side and vice versa. Once I had one side cut, then I moved my saw to cut at 45 degrees in the opposite direction and cut the other side the same way. Then I needed to join my pieces together for this handrail. To do this, I just applied a little bit of wood glue to my piece. Now, I didn't want to go crazy here with the wood glue and risk having it squeeze out everywhere, so I tried to only put enough to hold it together. Then I needed a way to clamp this thing together. Now, I would have just used a brad nailer here to sink some brad nails in to hold it tight while the glue dried, but I forgot to bring it with me, so we just added a finish nail to hold it while the glue dried. Once the glue had dried on this, I sanded and applied a couple coats of finish off camera before installation. To get the handrail installed on the brackets, we brought it inside and laid it on the brackets and adjusted it until we got it centered on the wall. Then I attached some screws through the bracket into the handrail on the bottom bracket. This helped hold it in place while I worked on attaching the rest. Then I used the little liquid nails for attaching the return pieces to the wall. This was another step where I really missed having my brad nailer. If I would have had it, then sinking some nails through the railing would have helped hold the bracket tighter to the wall while the liquid nails set up. Once I had the returns glued to the wall, then I just went bracket by bracket, sighting it to make sure it was even as I went, and attached the railing to each of my brackets. And that's all it took to get this stair handrail installed. Overall, this project only took me a couple of hours and required minimal tools. It has dramatically improved the safety of these steps for my parents, and they have both already commented several times how they can't believe they went so long without one. I hope some of you found this video helpful. If you did, consider giving it a like for me to help my channel continue to grow. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you again for my next project. Bye.